Excellent. So these, once again, will be on the website. One thing, if you do want to reach out and have a conversation with Luke, myself, or any of the advisors here about your own personal situation, this sheet here is very helpful for us to look at and review with you. You can download this just by going to SSA, Social Security Administration.gov, create your own login, and they have these statements, and it shows your work history and all the income you had, and you can make sure that it looks right to you because that's how they're calculating your benefit. But it also gives us estimates of your benefit. If your spouse has one, their benefit at their ages 62 and all the way through 62 through 70. Social Security is also just one of the things we look at. So it's a major part of everyone's retirement plan, but we do try to dovetail it or put it together as a big puzzle in this scenario to make sure that it aligns with everything else in your plan. Right? If that's investments, if that's a pension, if that's inheritance, equity in your home, and so forth. These are just some of the things we'll be going over during this presentation. And so I will let Luke jump in and start talking a little bit about how some of these benefits are calculated.
Definitely. And full retirement age, this is really an important number that everyone wants to know. As you can see, between when you were born is when your full retirement age is. So if you're born between 1943 and 1954, it's 66. Every year after that, it's basically going to be 66 in so many months. And why this is really important is so much of your benefit is calculated off your full retirement age. Can you take Social Security before then? Yes, but you're going to be penalized permanently from it. Many of the benefits are calculated based off the full retirement age, even for your spouse. If your spouse was to take it off your age, it's still calculated based off your full retirement age, not when you actually took it. That differs for other benefits like survivor Social Security benefits. So, James, if you want to go to the next page.
One thing I'll say here too, for anyone listening, I would highly recommend you take a quick look at your date of birth and maybe write on a piece of paper or something what your full retirement age is. Because Luke goes through these examples, I believe they're all 66 or 67. So you would want to just adjust this for your birth year.
Correct. Yeah. And why your full retirement age is also important. As you can see, yes, you can take it as early as 62. You're taking a significant permanent pay reduction of 25% or 30, depending on what age you are or what your full retirement age is. On the upside, each year you delay it up to age 70, you're getting a 8% increase, which is substantial. We do a ton of planning with all of our clients on when they should really take it. This is going to be more high level of your Social Security benefits. Like James said earlier, no two people are going to have the exact situation. So yes, you might have a neighbor who takes it at 62. You might have a neighbor who takes it at 70. It all really depends on both theirs and their spouse's Social Security amounts and how much they've saved. It differs from everyone. Some people want to take Social Security earlier because they don't have a long life expectancy, or they don't think they do based off family history, and they have enough in their portfolios to supplement their income. So there's all different options. But this is why we want to have one-on-one conversations with anyone who have these types of questions, because this is just very general knowledge that we're going to be going over today. And if you want to go to the next slide, James. Okay. We get this question a lot as well with Social Security while working. Can you take it while working? Technically, yes. Generally, it's best to wait at least until you're in your full retirement where you're not losing any benefit. If you take it early, for example, while you're working before you turn full retirement age, that's the important information there. Your earnings are limited to how much you will get, and the benefit can technically be completely eliminated if you make a substantial amount of money. So if you're making, for example, like $100,000 or more a year, and you take Social Security while working before full retirement age, you're basically not getting any Social Security benefit. It's not lost permanently, it's recalculated in throughout your lifetime, but really what's the point of if you're not going to actually earn any of it at that time, you might as well just delay it. So these are some of the questions that we would receive. When you turn your full retirement age, then you can take Social Security if you'd like and make as much as you want, and it's not going to limit it. In the year that you turn, though, those prior months, that's where you would technically have the benefit reduction of $1 for every $3 above the earning limit. But after you turn full retirement age of 66 or 67, then you can earn as much as you want, and there's no reduction in benefit. And that can be confusing, so James and I can discuss that with you again in person, over the phone, and so forth. So then there's options for married couples and divorcees, as we discussed earlier. So if we go to the next page, you can see this. Your full retirement age, as you can see at the top, is very important to know because the earnings test applies based off the full retirement age, not when they took it at age 70 or 62 or 63. It's when the beneficiary of the spouse, so say one spouse is the maid breadwinner, maybe they made all the money and the other spouse stayed at home, but the spouse who stayed at home, if they take their benefit at 62, they will get a reduction in benefit, as you see on these charts here, because they took theirs early, but it's still calculated based off the full retirement age benefit of the income earning spouse in that example. So it can get very confusing. Again, we're going high level. We can go into much more detail and answer questions on this at the end. And James, if you want to go to the next slides. And this is just going to run through an example. So this might make a little bit more sense once we can see the charts. So this is showing that Diane is the higher income earner. Jack's benefit is going to be less than the spousal benefit, so he didn't make as much. And this just goes over her Social Security amounts down below. And then the next page will go into much more detail on what's Jack's maximum and minimum benefit will be based on when he claims. So if you want to go to the next page, James, illustrating that her retirement benefit at 67, which is her full retirement age. Again, that's the important to know when your full retirement age and the benefit amount is. And if Jack is to claim at 67, what should it be? So you can claim up to 50% of what your spouse's benefit is. So it's going to be 5,000. That makes complete sense. Gets a little bit more confusing when Jack takes it at 62, for example. So if we go to when Jack takes it at 62, which is the earliest he can take it, his benefit is 3,250. It's still calculated based off Diane's age 67 benefit. It's just that since he's taken it earlier, he's getting that reduction, as you saw in the earlier slides, where if you're taking Social Security at 62 or 63, 4, 5, and so on, before your full retirement age, you're taking a permanent reduction in benefit. So if we go to the next slide, I believe it goes into more examples. If Diane took it at 70, which is the delayed credit that we spoke about, you get the biggest pay increase. Spousal benefit still is calculated based off her age 67 full retirement benefit of 10,000. So if we look at these examples now, Jack's benefit is exactly the same because it's based off her age 67, even though she delayed it and took it at 70. So some people might ask, well, why would they do that? You get a permanent pay increase while you're living. And if, God forbid, Diane passes away, Jack gets to step into that higher benefit. The survivor benefit is based on when the person actually started taking it. So at age 70, so Jack, instead of getting either 3,250 or 5,000 in this example, would step up and receive 12,400, the whole benefit. But he would no longer receive any of his own benefit if he had one. It's the higher of the two. So if we go to I don't know if there's another example here. Yes. So when Diane takes it at 62, so she's taking it early. Jack's also going to either be taken at 62 or his full retirement age. What happens to his benefit? It's actually going to still be calculated based off her age 67. So if we go to the next slide, it will fill this out. It's the same. It's always based off age 67, the full retirement age. That's why it's very important to know your number, your age, when that is, the full retirement age amount. All right.
So
All right.
this part, and actually, I'm go back to that for a moment. So just as Luke said, it's very important to know those numbers. So when you go and get your statement from SSA.gov, if you and your spouse both have your statements, you can look and see, okay, what is my benefit going to be at certain ages? And then what would my spouse's be? And that those are what we look at to say, okay, when should you collect? When is your benefit greater than this one? And as Luke had mentioned earlier, and I'm going to go into greater detail, oftentimes it's not just protecting the one that's claiming, but their spouse. So in this scenario, even if Diane maybe does not think she's going to make it another 20 years, we would still have her wait to 70, because if Jack's health is good enough, then we're protecting that spouse. So the whole Jack maybe collect sooner, but we're protecting for the survivor that $12,400 benefit. So this scenario, I am going to also go fairly high level because you can get pretty deep into the weeds. But one of the options that people have is if both spouses worked, but one made significantly more than the other. Oftentimes what happens is you have one of them, the lower income earner, start collecting first. Why is that? Because when the other spouse applies, that they will actually get to the spouse that's collecting is forced to take the larger of the two benefits, theirs that they've been receiving or half of their spouses. And oftentimes half of the spouses is more. So there's no reason to wait to collect yours, start taking money out of Social Security sooner rather than later, because you've been paying in all these years. I will also mention there were some tax law changes a few years ago now, something called file and suspend, where both spouses were able to collect a spousal off each other, let their own continue to grow by 8% a year. That's been eliminated. It was essentially double dipping, and Social Security got rid of that. So all of the things we'll all be going over do require that if it's a spousal benefit, that at least one spouse is collecting before a spousal benefit can be used. So in this case, again, it's what if the lower income earner starts collecting first before the other person. So in this scenario, everyone is age 62. And it's looking at what will they receive if they start collecting at 62 versus what would they receive once their spouse, who has a much higher benefit, starts collecting in the future. In this case, we have Alex, Blake, and Chris. And it's just showing that in this case, you can see that Alex's benefit at his age 67 is the same as what he would get as spousal. So there's no step up there. Blake's, it's 1,000. His will go up by $200 more at 67, the spousal side, not his own, but the spousal. And then Chris, in this case, has no retirement benefit on his own. He did not have enough earned income for Social Security purposes. So he would have a significant jump for spousal. Again, all these slides will be available later. So I just want to show these three scenarios side by side. Chris was the one where his benefit, it was the last one I was just talking about, where there was no personal benefit. So there isn't an option to collect. He just has to wait until a spouse starts collecting. And at that time, that their household will get the spouse's benefit and a spousal benefit, for Chris being $1,200. There's nothing clever to do there. Blake was the one where his personal benefit was $1,000 at his full retirement age. And once his spouse starts collecting, his benefit would jump to $1,200. In this scenario, this is oftentimes where we still have spouses wait to collect until their full retirement age, because, as Luke said earlier, if you collect before your full retirement age, you see a reduction in benefit. So instead of getting the 1,000 he would have gotten at 67, his full retirement age, he gets 700. Now his spousal's not reduced. He still gets the $200 difference, but the 200 is added to his 7, not 1,000. So his total benefit would be 900 because he started collecting his personal benefit early. On this side, it just shows that the spousal and his own were the same. So there's really no change. If he collects early, he gets 700. There's no additional paid on top because it's the same as his earlier one. So oftentimes we do have both spouses wait until at least their full retirement age, even if one of them continues till 70. And this is just showing why. Another very important thing that unfortunately we do run into is if a spouse passes away, what are your options? And essentially, you can collect on your own benefit or on your spouse's benefit. If your spouse has already started collecting, then you get whatever their benefit was. Right. So if they started collecting early, you get unfortunately reduce their whatever their reduced benefit was. If they waited till 70, you get their increased benefit, whatever that number was. And that's what Luke was referencing earlier. There's also some timing. So I've worked with clients, for instance, where a husband and wife had the same benefit. Husband passed away, unfortunately. The wife actually switched to a survivor benefit to allow her personal one to continue to grow, and she will switch at 70. And then at that point, so there's some things that you are able to do with the survivor. But in this case, Social Security's goal is to always have some protection for the family. There are also survivor benefits. All the scenarios we've been talking about have been for people that are within collecting age. So survivor benefits at 60 and up. There are also survivor benefits for children. So if someone passes away younger, I have 2 young daughters, they would actually be entitled to some survivor benefits as well until their age 18. So for this, I am going to skip through this section just because it is another way of saying what we looked at earlier. This on this side here is talking about the deceased's claiming decision and how it affects the surviving spouse. As I said, in this scenario, if the deceased claimed early, this is I'm going to use the blue for my instances because it's the average earner. You can see that their spouse only gets to collect what they were collecting, which is a reduced benefit, $23,000. They waited to their full retirement age. They would both the collecting spouse and then the deceased would have received the $27,500. But most importantly, and why we have the highest income earner typically wait till 70 is they're protecting $35,000, or even if you're a top income earner, $56,000 a year for your spouse. So it's a big benefit, or for yourself, because even if you're the higher income earner and you're receiving that 56,000, your spouse is also receiving something, and when they pass, that goes away. And so your spouse, it may even be, if you're having 56, your spouse might be in the neighborhood of 20,000 that would go away. This is what I was referencing earlier, where I had a client. They actually started with the survivor benefit because theirs was able to grow by 8% every year, and then they will switch at 70. Other times, if you were the lower income earner and you're the survivor, then you would start collecting your own benefit, and then you could switch in the future to the survivors. It does not continue to grow past their full retirement age, so you would start collecting. You wouldn't have to wait till 70, but it would increase. The other thing is Social Security is not just set for survivors, but also for people that have a divorce, right? You typically, the plan was to collect off each other's benefit, and that shouldn't go away just because there's a divorce. My dad does like to refer to this as the Johnny Carson rule because he had multiple marriages. And so as long as the marriage was for 10 plus years, then you can collect off your ex's benefit. So in a situation where there was one earner that had significantly more income, their ex-spouse is able to collect off their benefit. Now, one very important thing on here, you do not need to be notified. So if I was divorced, I would not have to notify my wife that I was collecting off her benefit. It does not reduce her benefit. And if she gets remarried, it does not reduce her new spouse's benefit. So there's no impact to an ex-spouse, and there's no need to communicate with an ex-spouse on collecting. The one thing that I've had frustrations with clients and it frustrates myself is Social Security cannot tell you what your ex-spouse's benefit is. So there is some unknown on what your spousal may look like. You would have to get ready to apply. You have to go through the process of applying to get that benefit. But oftentimes people can have a rough estimate. So a few other things on here too. This is touching on after, even if you divorce and then your ex passes away, you can still collect what they call a divorced survivor benefit. So the Social Security is designed to protect people in most situations. There's a few other things in here to take a look at after. So one scenario, and I'm going to just click through here, perfect, that I have seen is you have a marriage that's been for more than 10 years. You want to collect on a spousal, but there is impacts if you, not your ex, but if you remarry. So as you can see here, again, if your ex spouse remarries, there is no impact to you, as that doesn't affect you, doesn't affect them. If you remarry before the age of 60, then you no longer can collect anything off your ex-spouse. You can collect off your new spouse, but you cannot collect off your ex-spouse. If you remarry after 60, then you forfeit your spousal benefit off your ex, but you can still collect a survivor's, and it can actually be depending on whose surviving benefit is larger, your ex or your current spouse. I have had one less than romantic client actually choose to wait to become remarried, even though they were all ready to be married with someone. They delayed an extra year to remarry after age 60 to protect the spousal survivor benefit off their ex. Not a recommendation, but an option. So I am going to, again, kind of move through this one fairly quickly here. But in this scenario, just looking at someone, if there's a divorce and remarriage. So in this case, Jane has not remarried, but she has divorced. So she marries Tom at 25. They're married for more than that 10-year mark. Then they become divorced and Tom passes away. She can collect the survivor benefit from Tom. If she gets remarried at 45, again, hits that 10-year mark, she cannot collect a spousal benefit from Tom. She has to collect from her new husband, Theo. But if she becomes divorced, you can see here she has the option of collecting either spousal or survivor from Theo, or she can have a survivor from Tom. So whatever benefit's larger. These are nuanced, obviously very specific scenario. So I'm going to move through these, but happy to discuss them. One thing on here as well for Social Security benefits. So this is one of those that people don't realize. The government gets you coming and going with these. So not only do you pay into Social Security every year that you work, your Social Security benefits that you receive are also taxable. And the way they tax them, either 0% of your benefit is taxable if you're married, filing jointly, income is less than $32,000. 50% if it's in this range, or up to 85% if your income's here. Half of your Social Security benefit is counted towards your income. So if someone's Social Security was $30,000, then right up front, they would have $15,000 worth of Social Security income that gets added to see if they get to the 44. Most of our clients do end up in this range, and they just can anticipate 85% of their benefit being taxable. But we do have some people where, we do take a close look and see if they're on the threshold, if we can keep them below, and they can keep more of their Social Security. So here's actually what I was just referencing. So your adjusted gross income is added in. So if you look at your tax return, you can see there's a line item, adjusted gross income. You actually subtract your Social Security out of that. Then you add half of it back in. And then you add in if you have any municipal bonds or other tax exempt income to find out if your income is in any of these ranges. There's a few exclusions to that. This calculation here, just on a high level, if you are sending money directly to charities, qualified charitable distributions, if you are receiving Roth money, if you inherit money, life insurance, a lot of these things that are essentially tax-free are not included in the calculation because they're not part of your adjusted gross income. It's really just the tax-exempt bond interest that gets added back in. So this is stuff that I'd encourage you to take a look at after, because this is also nuance that we look at per client. So I do want to touch on for one moment too, we do have a few clients that have government pensions, or they have other significant pensions that would fall under these two things. So even if you've been paying into Social Security, you may actually see your benefit reduced because if you have certain government pensions. So I believe things like the FERS, they call it, Federal Employee Retirement System, does not see reduction, but there are other ones that do. So it is a case by case, but we'll look at that with you. There are some. Another key element of Social Security is disability benefits. So if someone becomes disabled, oftentimes people will say, I'm just going to collect Social Security disability. I don't need my own disability insurance, whether it's through work or it's personal. This is the hardest disability to qualify for. Most people do not get it on their first try, and they end up having to hire an attorney to help them get through the process. So not necessarily something to count on, but if you do collect it, you can start collecting early. And there are some protections for your children and your spouses, and it will switch from disability to regular until just your regular retirement benefit at your full retirement age. One other important thing here is I've had a few clients run into this. As I said, Social Security will pay for if you pass away or become disabled. There is both a spousal and a child benefit. So again, something happens to me, my wife and children would be entitled to certain survivor benefits. My wife until my children are 16, and then my children until they're 18. But if I have 8 kids, the government's not going to pay all 8 kids and my wife. There is a cap to how much. So these are just some benefits that were removed. So I'm going to end this there and just take a look. Luke, I'm having a hard time seeing my chat for some reason here. Do we have any questions that you see in the chat?
No, not at the moment, at least.
Perfect. Okay. And as I said, that makes sense to me because I don't want anyone to have to go and put in there, this is my income, my spouse's income, my life expectancy. So very happy to just have a quick conversation after with people. You can give the office a call or email Luke, myself, or whoever the advisor is that you're working with on these with questions, and we can go from there. Luke, is there anything you feel we may have missed that we should cover, or is this?
No, I think we went very high level, which is good. I mean, we gave some examples, but like James and I have been saying, it's a lot of information thrown into one slideshow, and it's to get into the details of your specific situation, we really need to have your Social Security statements, which James said you can just get on ssa.gov, and a complete understanding of what your income needs are, what your retirement assets are like, and so we can understand how and when you should be taking Social Security. And some of it is personal. Were you married before you were a client here that we don't know of? I mean, that might be something we need to know, or it is something we need to know if it falls into these categories.
Absolutely. So if you go to brophywealth.com and our client center is one of the tabs, you will see this presentation, the recording and the slides there. We will also send out a video just letting you know an email letting you know when it is available. So with that, I think we're done a little sooner than anticipated, but I'm sure people would not mind having some of their time back. So thank you everyone for attending. As I said, this is the last one of these we will be having for this year, but we already I had a meeting this morning about which ones we're going to be scheduling again for next year. So some of those will be on estate planning, identity theft, Medicare. So I look forward to continuing those. But for now, thank you.
Thank you.